Soy candles are a relatively new concept in a 5,000-year-old industry. As one of the top soybean producers in the world, it might not be surprising to find a soy candle manufacturer right here in Iowa. What is surprising is that the entrepreneurs behind Milkhouse Candles were once a school teacher and an occupational therapist. Our next Iowa entrepreneurs, Eric and Janet Sparrow, started making candles together while they were still dating.
The first time we made candles was like our fourth date. Eric had this beautiful acreage and he said, "Hey, come out, let's make some candles." And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. It was just really fun, and that's kind of when I knew this guy's different, This might be the guy.
Eric and Janet got engaged and continued to make candles together as a hobby.
On our wedding day, our outside wedding, we decided we're kind of cheapskates. And through this candle hobby, we thought, let's put the candles on the table and let's do candles that we made. And so we did that, and it just kind of started something. People took those candles home with them, they liked them. At that time, we made them out of paraffin. And it didn't take us long to realize that there's a lot of reasons not to use paraffin. Yes, it's an easier wax to use. Yes, most candle manufacturers make their candles out of paraffin, but the reality is paraffin emits carcinogens when it burns, and that's obviously a bad thing. So I, as a teacher at the time, I taught third grade, and Janet, as an occupational therapist at the time, working at several nursing homes, we actually took our candle experiments and took them to the workplace with us and sold them pretty much for what we had into them. And so we kind of really started to tweak our formulation. And we realized in not too long that, hey, you know what? The best candles are coming from soy wax. But it was really challenging to work with because it's a natural product. It does natural things. Aesthetically, it doesn't look the same in a jar. It doesn't hold fragrance as well. It doesn't hold color as well. Paraffin wax are full of junk, garbage, carcinogens, poisons. And it's those impurities that the fragrance sticks to, the color sticks to. So in a paraffin candle, you can get great fragrance throw, great color, but in the end, you're getting a candle that's poisoning you, where soy doesn't have any of those impurities. So color doesn't hold on as well. Fragrance doesn't hold on as well. And because of that, what we began to recognize is it's not easy to do this, but it's worth our time. It's worth investing the time to figure it out because it's a great product, it's a healthier product, and it's a product that makes sense for us living in rural Iowa.
Through trial and error, they figured out how to make a better candle that isn't harmful like regular wax.
Now those candles were going home to other staff members, being gifted to friends and family of theirs, and now we're getting, accidentally, calls from store owners saying, "Hey, this is a really great product. Do you guys wholesale?" "No, we don't." "Would you consider wholesaling? Because I think this is something that would be really great for our store." And so this hobby accidentally became a business for us.
So, Eric and Janet turned their hobby into Milkhouse Candles. They stayed working full-time and started making large quantities of candles out of their home in their free time.
I'd come home from school, teaching, coaching, and maybe 7 o'clock at night I'm getting home, and we're working till midnight, every night making candles. Great candles. We're very passionate about every candle that we're making. But we're doing it till midnight every night and getting up early in the morning the next day. We actually literally were spending our breakfast time. Here are these candles on the table. We made them the night before, and now we're labeling them. And Janet and I just recognized that this is pretty cool what's happening here, but we can't continue to build this business if I'm going to keep being a teacher, if she's going to keep doing her OT thing. So we put the pencil to the paper, and we said, if I can generate enough revenue every month to pay for the house payment, to pay for utilities, to pay for telephone. If I can do that, then Janet's income can take care of the feeding us and putting gas in vehicles and those other things. And what we recognized was that it takes $1,000 a month for us to survive, to have this component taken care of. Can we make $1,000 a month making candles as a business full time? People around us, when I went and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm done teaching this year," at the end of the year, they thought we were crazy. No way. Why would you give up teaching, the solid job, these great benefits? Who does that? That was a tough day. Going to the superintendent and saying, "Hey, by the way, I quit." And to be honest with you, I didn't tell him what we were doing because I was sure he would think that we were crazy.
Eric quit his job to focus all of his time on their home-based business, but manufacturing candles out of their home caused a significant disruption to their lives.
You know, we just kind of got tired of our house being overrun with candles. There was wax everywhere, in every room. As any entrepreneur will tell you, when you have a business in your house, you never get away from that. You know, you are constantly able to work on it, and so you do.
And so we started looking for space, and we found about 3 miles away an old bakery donut house. It had 1,800 square feet. Half of that was kitchen. And we thought, my goodness, we'll never use all this space. This is fantastic. And I remember the day moving in, because our maximum production capacity out of the kitchen was 100 pounds a day. We had 10-pound batches of wax a day, maximum. Within 6 months, we were jam-packed and wondering how much longer we could survive in that space.
Milkhouse would move several times before it landed in Osage. Osage is in Mitchell County, which lies on the Iowa-Minnesota border. The city is known for its beautiful maple trees, many of which were planted by early settlers. Moving to Osage in a larger facility meant that Eric and Janet could expand their business even more. This meant that they needed more employees.
As an entrepreneur, we're wearing all the hats. And it's time to start removing some of these hats and put them in other people's heads and make them in charge. There's always that mindset that says, well, it couldn't possibly be done as good as it gets done with me doing it. And that's very true, that's very real. However, when you get all these hats that you're wearing, the reality that I will say that I've certainly felt, I'll say after the fact, is that I can't do it all myself. And the fact is, by giving it to this person, it's actually gonna get done. Maybe I could do it 20% better than they could, but the fact is I'm not doing it at all. So it's actually 80% better than it was. And I think that's probably part of the reality, is that we need to recognize that in order for us to grow and scale, systems have to be in place.
Around the same time, Janet quit her job and joined Eric in running Milkhouse full-time. Eric's role was now shifting in the business.
I use the analogy to be a conductor of a great orchestra. You can conduct any way you want. You get to wear that, you get to own that. And you can make the most brilliant sounds, you can make a lot of noise, you can make very subtle music. You can conduct it any way you want. But the one thing you cannot do is to go sit in that chair and play violin. And that's really the difference between working on the business, working into the conductor's working on it. He's making this beautiful music. But if I stop making music and go play that violin, I can do a great job of playing that violin, but where is everyone else? They're lost.
Working on the business, Eric was able to grow Milkhouse to a whole new level. But now they were faced with the same old problems. They had outgrown their space and overworked their employees.
Later on, in 2014, the fall of 2014, this giant facility became available 40 miles away from us. So on auction day, I had already put some pre-bids in on some of the pieces that we wanted, and honestly, not even expecting to get it. But at least I had that part of it done in preparation. We had approved for a certain amount from the bank, which was an amount that Janet and I were comfortable with taking on debt, because we knew that potentially if we can buy what we want to buy and get it for the right price, we can do it for this amount of money. Everyone was very comfortable with that. The bank was comfortable, we were comfortable, and it made sense.
I was expecting we were just going to come home with maybe a few melters, a few other pieces of equipment, and we walked over to line 1 and we got it. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's all right, we can do this. It's not that big, we can bring it home. And then when we walked over to this monster, I did not think that we got it, just from the way it happened. And Eric came over to me, he's like, no, we didn't get it, it's fine. Then the auctioneer came over and explained to us that, no, you won that. You won the bid on that one. And I think for about 5 minutes we both just sat down and thought, what has happened right now? It was a little stressful. So we said, all right, let's get up. If we're gonna have these big pieces of equipment, we've gotta have everything to make them work.
As the auction progressed, well, if you have this huge piece of equipment, you need this equipment on the side of it to help that processing piece of it. And so we continued to buy and we continued to buy. And I am on the phone with my banker saying, oh my goodness, this is not where I anticipated being, but we're here and I'm too deep to turn back and we're not deep enough to swim yet. So we gotta go. Yeah, it was a really nerve-wracking day. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, if the bank says, yeah, well, you're way over my limit, so we got approved for this, we actually spent three times what we were approved for. But we knew that there was a way. If we had to take some of it and sell it off, we'd make it work. Failure is not an option, and that's kind of been the mantra since we started this thing. Failure is not an option. What success looks like when we're done might be different than we think it's going to be today, but failure is not an option. So we knew that there was ways that we could figure out how to get the debt paid if we needed to right away. But the opportunity to expand the soy message and to do incredible things in this facility were right there. They're in our hand. And we couldn't say no. We couldn't drop it. We had to go. And it's been a leap. It's been really hard. But entrepreneurship is really hard. If it were easy, we'd all be here right now.
Eric and Janet have learned a lot about entrepreneurship since making that first candle together. They never expected that their hobby could ever grow into a business. Many people have hobbies and are extremely passionate and good at what they do, but can't make it in the business world. The key is that Eric and Janet are not only good at making candles, they are good at facing challenges and building a business.
You hear it all the time, do what you love. And the problem with doing what you love and making a business of it is that what you love becomes a business, becomes a job, and sometimes isn't the same thing as you love. So that's the one thing that I would encourage an entrepreneur. Hey, I love doing this. I love making cookies. It doesn't mean you should make a cookie business. Maybe you need to make cookies and give them away or something to satisfy that. But if you have a business mind or you have someone who could take that and scale that, then maybe you should consider making a business of it. I will tell you that I probably had 1,000 different ideas that ran through my head that I researched before it ever became candles. And like I said, candles were kind of an accident. It was something that, yeah, I can go buy the materials and make that today. Okay, well, it's a fun hobby. And then the wheels start turning. Could I make some money on this? Yeah. Could I expand this message? Yeah. Could I make an impact? Yeah. And then, of course, became, can I leave the world a lot better than I found it? Yeah. And who would have guessed? From a candle made from a soybean. Pretty cool.
Iowa is known for agriculture. It is one of the largest producers of corn, soybeans, pigs, and eggs. But ask an Iowa native where Aronia berries are grown, you might get a blank stare and a confused, the what berry? The Aronia berry, otherwise known as the black chokeberry, is native to North America and is now grown throughout the world. It is also a superfood containing more than double the number of antioxidants found in blueberries. Aronia berry farming is beginning to take off in Iowa. With so many potential health benefits, the demand continues to increase. Dean Mangrich started growing Aronia in 2011 and is blazing a trail for the Midwest Aronia berry market. Dean, a crop protection sales associate, first heard about Aronia on the radio in March 2011.
I do a lot of driving in Northeast Iowa, and that particular day, it was funny because they had talked about Aronia, and this is bad, but for a salesman, I didn't have a pen in my pocket and I didn't have one handy, and I thought, I can remember that, Aronia. Well, it wasn't 5 miles down the road, I was like, oh, what was that thing called again? And we hear that all of the time now. It's like Aronia. It's like, what's that? Or I forgot what the name of that was called. And so it was the next day that I think they had, or maybe it was 2 days later, that they were talking about it again. Mark Pierce was on the big show, and I'm like, I pulled over this time, and it's like, I got to write this down.
And he came home all excited, and so we started looking on the internet. We started looking up information, and then my daughter and her boyfriend came up the weekend, and we all got on the internet. We were all researching, what is this Aronia berry?
With their interest piqued, the couple headed to Des Moines for a 3-day Aronia berry conference.
So we went to that conference, and there was, I think there was 300 people there. And they were people, some of them were just starting to raise Aronia. They were raising blueberries, and they were raising just a number of different kinds of berries. And what we found, though, was that of the people that were raising Aronia, people were having like 20 plants and 100 plants, and I don't think there was anybody there that day that we talked to that had 1,000 plants. And so when we left the conference, we were on the way home, we talked about, whether we wanted to do this or not. And I said, so what do you think? Do we want to do this? And she's like, are you thinking about doing, all 10 acres? And I'm like, sure, why not?
Dean and Donna both grew up on farms in Iowa. Both understood the work that comes with farm life. At the time they decided to grow Aronia, Dean and Donna were already raising 7,500 hogs. But with their minds made up, they began to figure out how to grow Aronia just outside of Fairbank.
So our plans were to plant that fall. And it was a couple weeks later, I'm like, we really have no idea what we're doing here, because we've talked to a dozen people and everybody say your rows should be 10 feet apart and your plants should be 6 feet apart, and other people are saying this and that. And I said, let's put a plan together and let's do a trial run here and let's plant about 2,400 plants here in June. And so we did. So we went to work really quickly and we put a plan together to plant some. Well, we learned really fast what we weren't going to do, and that was we weren't going to plant by hand. So we planned on a Saturday and a Sunday. We put 2,400 plants in the ground. 12 of us did, working 12-hour days. It was fun for about a half hour. We knew right away then that wasn't going to be an option, and we're really glad that we did that trial run in June. Otherwise, our plan would have been to do that with all 13 or 12,000 plants that we were going to plant at that point in time.
Dean and Donna made the decision to borrow a tree planter and plant their Aronia. This allowed them to set up production and save their backs. With plants in the ground, Aronia was becoming the new buzzword for the area.
But so we planted Aronia, and we had a lot of interest from different people locally, and somehow word sort of spread. And we ended up buying a tree planter out of Wisconsin, and we planted some berries for a few people, and then more people started to hear about what we were doing. We actually had not started a business yet. We were just doing this. In 2013, we decided that we had enough people that were contacting us and looking for information, because you have to keep in mind that Aronia was new to virtually everybody. There was a few people out in western Iowa and in Nebraska that were doing some things, but generally speaking, it was new.
Dean formed Aronia Berry Services of Northeast Iowa and began planting and harvesting Aronia for customers interested in raising this special berry. Dean and Donna had purchased a planter, tractor, and trailer to help with production.
So we were planting a half an acre, maybe 2 acres for people, which would be anywhere from 500 to 12 to 1,500 plants, 2,000 plants. It was slow to grow, but there was enough curiosity about the health benefits that come out of Aronia that people were getting interested in raising. So we went from planting a quarter to a half an acre to 2 and maybe 2 acres to now we plant a lot of 5 acres, 10 acres. We planted 23 acres for a guy. There's another guy going to plant 52 acres. We were out in Nebraska last summer and we planted about 75,000 plants for a couple growers, 3 growers out there in Nebraska. And so the business, it just sort of perpetuated itself.
Those first years of planting did not come without difficulty. Dean and Donna had plenty to learn about growing and maintaining Aronia.
When we first planted, or first started the business and did our first planting, weed control is crucial to raising Aronia. If you can't control the grass and the broadleaf, Aronia won't survive. It'll be 5 years old and it'll be 10 inches tall, where if you take proper care, water, and control the weeds, our plants by year 3 were about 4 feet tall. So there was a learning curve that we basically learned. We did a lot of things the hard way, and we did some things the wrong way. And when you plant a plant like Aronia, which essentially will last forever, you only really get one shot at it unless you're going to go back and tear it out and start over.
Dean and Donna's business was growing right along with the popularity of Aronia. They knew that Aronia is a long-term investment because the plants take 3 years to produce fruit, and they will last almost indefinitely. With many of the kinks in planning worked out, it was time to figure out how to harvest the fruit that would appear in the coming years. To do this, the couple went to the Aronia capital of the world, Poland.
So in 2012, we started talking about how are people going to harvest these berries. And so, because it takes about 720 man-hours to harvest 1 acre of Aronia once the plant gets established and you're getting full production. And, that was the big buzz, but nobody was really talking about what were we going to do. So me and Donna decided in 2013 that we were going to take a trip to Poland, because with Poland being the Aronia capital of the world, where else would you look but to go see how they're doing theirs? Their climate is the same as ours, and so their growing season is the same as ours. So we went over there to experience their harvest. And so we spent 8 days over there in the fields, and it was a humbling experience. It was a very knowledgeable experience. We learned a tremendous amount about harvesting, in addition to their culture and how they live over there.
Well, we came back from Poland and we started across the road. We were doing the field between the hog buildings. They got the little blue harvester out. It was running very nice, very smooth, and they went down the first row to harvest. Well, we discovered it's not an Aronia harvester, it's a blueberry harvester, and it doesn't work the same on Aronia berries. We were down the first row, halfway down, and we said we can't use this because the berries were falling to the ground. And it was after that harvest we said, okay, we are going to order our harvester from Poland. When we first decided we were gonna plant the berries, the bushes, he said, people kept asking, well, what are you gonna do with your berries? He said, that's 3 years away. There'll be something that, there'll be a market for the berries at some point in time. That's 3 years away. Be the first person to get them planted, so you're the first person with that crop and you'll know where the market is going.
Now custom planting Aronia all over the Midwest, Dean and Donna have expanded their business. They now distribute water treatment systems for irrigation and are also a licensed dealer for the Polish Aronia berry harvester. There are many challenges with being first, to be the trailblazer in an industry, but Dean wouldn't have it any other way.
Before we got into this business, I was happy doing my day job, which I still am extremely happy doing that. I was happy raising hogs. I was happy having some free time. We don't have any free time anymore, and we're okay with that. You give up a part of your life or your freedom when you start to do that, and maybe that's by choice. It's what you have to do if you truly want to be successful.
Dean heard about an almost unknown berry on the radio and took the risk of planting and raising it, even though the market was nearly non-existent. But that didn't stop him from setting the standard for Aronia in the Midwest.